The Indian red scorpion. It lives in gardens, wood piles, and grain stores across one of the most densely populated stretches of land on the planet, which means the deadliest scorpion on Earth is also one of the easiest to run into. But people stung by this one usually aren't killed by the venom directly. They're killed by what their own body does about 90 minutes later. It's 2 to 3 inches, rust orange with slim pincers and a thick tail. That tail clearly got the entire research budget, and the pincers got whatever was left over. One sting and the nervous system dumps a flood of adrenaline it can't switch back off. Minutes later, the heart is hammering against a body that won't let it rest. Then fluid crosses into the lungs, and clinical studies have put the untreated fatality rate somewhere between 8 and 40%, the highest of any scorpion ever measured. Most people assume the big armored scorpions are the dangerous ones. The correlation runs the other way. Heavy pincers mean a scorpion crushes what it catches, so it spends less on chemistry. And this thing's chemistry is honestly wildly overqualified for hunting crickets. Every scorpion sting starts a clock. What changes, species to species, is how much time is on it. Nothing else with a stinger comes close to that number. The Brazilian yellow scorpion. This one didn't get found deep in some jungle. It moved into storm drains, rubble piles, and apartment buildings, and it's spreading through Brazilian cities faster than anyone can spray for it. And the reason nobody can clear it out of a neighborhood has nothing to do with pesticide. Pale yellow, small enough to sit inside a bottle cap. It eats cockroaches, which means urban decay is basically a buffet. It started as a savanna animal with a limited range. Then it turned up in sewers, then in city centers. It's now recorded in around 70% of Brazil's states and drives over 90,000 envenomation cases a year, more than any other country on the map has to deal with. Turns out killing the ones you find does almost nothing, because this species is largely parthenogenetic. A single female makes copies of herself twice a year, 20 to 30 at a time, with no male involved anywhere in the process. Pest control was built around interrupting mating, and this animal just skipped the entire step, which makes a single female arriving in a building less like an infestation starting and more like a franchise opening. One female in a drain pipe is a colony with a delay on it. The Arizona bark scorpion. If you live in Phoenix or Tucson, this is the one in your garage, and Arizona's Poison Center fields more than 1,000 sting reports every year. But the reason it keeps ending up in bedrooms isn't hunting, it's a posture thing. Barely 3 inches counting the tail, pale tan, and it glows blue-green under a black light. It's the only scorpion native to the United States whose venom can shut a human body down, and the severe cases land almost entirely on kids under 6. It can climb a vertical stucco wall. It can hold itself upside down on a ceiling indefinitely, and it can squeeze through a gap about as thick as a credit card, which describes roughly every doorframe in the state. Functionally, it's an animal that treats every ceiling in your house as a floor. Bark scorpions orient to the underside of whatever they're on. That reputation for lurking in shoes comes from exactly that, not from malice. A shoe is just an overhang, so is a bedsheet. Nature handed this thing upside down as a default setting, and no ability to reconsider. It isn't in the house because it found you. It's in the house because the house is full of undersides. I spend a stupid amount of time digging up animals like this one, and a subscribe makes that time easier to justify. Thanks. The fat-tailed scorpion. Across North Africa, this is the animal that turns a night walk to an outhouse into an emergency room trip. And it's common enough that most rural households have a story about it. There's one number attached to this species that explains why an entire region built its anti-venom program around it. 4 inches, sandy yellow, with a tail so thick it looks swollen. Its genus name is Androctonus, which comes from Greek and translates with no subtlety whatsoever to man-killer. A genus named man-killer is, at minimum, honest branding. The venom doesn't go after one system, it goes after 3. Neurotoxins misfire the nerves. Cardiotoxins hit heart muscle directly. Myotoxins start breaking tissue down. It causes roughly 80% of scorpion stings in North Africa. It causes about 90% of the deaths. Which means it isn't just the most dangerous species in the region, it's most of the danger in the region. The clock on this one runs in hours, not days, and it doesn't slow down for adults. and the toxicity readings jump around wildly depending on which dune the specimen came from, which nobody has fully explained yet. Most animals get an intimidating name they can't live up to. This one got the name afterward: the Transvaal thick-tailed scorpion. This is a scorpion you can neat without ever touching it, which puts it in a category almost nothing else on land occupies. It doesn't need contact to hurt you. Southern Africa's biggest boothid, up to 5.5 inches, glossy, dark brown to black, with a tail thicker than most of its own legs. The venom carries door toxin, among other toxins, and in one study of 277 stings, 10% went severe and 5 people died. It can flick that tail hard enough to launch venom clear of its own body length, and it can put that spray over a meter out, better than 3 feet, from an animal that fits in your palm. A warning shot delivered in venom form is basically the arachnid version of a car alarm. Despite the name, the spitting is defensive, not offensive. It's often a weaker pre-venom, held back from the real payload, and the scorpion would genuinely rather you left. So a palm-sized animal has functionally ranged combat. Why something this well-armed also needed a way to skip the fight is still an open question. That's the pattern with the ones that actually kill people. The weapon was never built for us. We just keep walking into rooms it's already in. The Trinidad thick-tailed scorpion. Most venoms go after nerves or blood. This one goes after an organ almost nothing else targets, and it does it well enough that Trinidadian doctors learned to recognize the pattern before they had a name for it. In 1970, a cluster of hospital cases all shared one symptom that had nothing to do with the sting site: reddish-brown, slender, found only on Trinidad and Tobago with a small foothold in Venezuela. The venom triggers a massive release of digestive enzymes inside the pancreas itself, and the organ starts processing its own tissue. Of every organ available, nature picked the one nobody thinks about until it's already a problem. 24 cases of acute pancreatitis were documented after stings that year. The whole island is smaller than Delaware. It has exactly one medically serious scorpion, and that single species produced enough acute pancreatitis to put the syndrome into the medical literature as its own recognized presentation. The venom can also inflame heart muscle, which is where the fatal cases come from. The pancreas, for the record, is not a well-defended target. One species on one island added a whole diagnosis to the textbook. The Durango bark scorpion. Mexico once recorded hundreds of scorpion deaths a year, and this species drove the numbers in one city so hard that the local nickname and the souvenirs still reference it. What happened next is a drop most public health programs never get to claim. Straw-colored, slim, about 2.5 inches, and it's one of the very few scorpions whose sting can kill a healthy adult outright. Durango sits right in the semi-arid band this species likes, with adobe and stone construction offering endless daytime cover. So density did the damage more than potency. Then the national anti-venom campaign hit, and fatalities fell from roughly 300 a year in the early 1990s to about 70 by 2002. The common version of the fire story, by the way, is wrong. Scorpions ringed by flame don't sting themselves to death. They've got a decentralized nervous system with no capacity for that decision, and the thrashing is just thermal spasm. That myth held on in print for over a century, mostly because nobody wanted to sit close enough to check. A city leaning into its scorpion the way other towns lean into a giant roadside statue is, honestly, a choice. The scorpion never changed. The anti-venom did. Every place with a real scorpion problem eventually builds a story around it, and the story is usually wrong. The Amazonian black scorpion. Across the Amazon basin, this thing turns up in cacao harvests and firewood, and the symptom list reads less like a sting and more like a neurological event. The strangest part isn't even the pain, it's what patients report about their own coordination. Deep brown to nearly black, 4 inches, effectively invisible against wet bark. Documented symptoms include myoclonus, dysarthria, and ataxia, which in plain language means jerking muscles, slurred speech, and a body that's lost track of itself. The pain arrives immediately. The slurring and the twitching arrive within the hour, and patients have described electric shock sensations moving through the body for hours afterward, long after the puncture itself stopped mattering. So a 4-inch animal can make a grown adult miss a doorknob by 6 inches. The toxins hit sodium channels in motor and sensory neurons at the same time, so the nervous system misreports position, movement, and touch simultaneously. Speech, balance, and limb control degrade together. Nature essentially unplugged the body's wiring diagram and reconnected it wrong. This is the rare clock you can feel running, every second of it. Guyana recorded 3 deaths from this species inside a single 12-month period. No other scorpion on record scrambles a human nervous system in that many directions at once. The Moroccan Fat-Tail. Morocco runs one of the most active scorpion surveillance systems on the planet, and it exists largely because of this animal. The famous scorpions get documentaries. This one gets the hospital beds. Dark brown to black, robust, up to 4 inches, endemic to Morocco and the ground right around it. It's the leading cause of scorpion hospitalization in the country by a wide margin, which is a strange way to stay anonymous. It sits in dense human terrain, dry, rocky farmland with stone walls and outbuildings. So the venom is potent, but the real reason it dominates the statistics is that it lives where the people are. Regional antivenoms built against it have had to be redone more than once, as populations turned out to differ chemically from valley to valley. Researchers keep discovering that the same species isn't quite the same species 200 miles away. It has never had a nickname, a documentary, or a single viral clip, and it out-hospitalizes every scorpion that has. Lethality almost never tracks with fame. It tracks with how many people live where the thing lives. The Iranian Lepturus scorpion. Most scorpions announce themselves the second they connect. This one doesn't, and by the time the body reacts, the person has usually gone to bed, gone to work, and forgotten it happened. And the reason it dominates an entire country's fatality statistics has nothing to do with how strong the venom is. Slender, pale to reddish, with a thin tail that looks harmless, found across southwestern Iran. Its venom is cytotoxic instead of neurotoxic, so it destroys tissue directly using phospholipase enzymes that tear cell membranes apart. Dead tissue at the sting site, red blood cells rupturing in circulation, kidneys taking the load. It's a weapon that's shipped with its own mute button because the venom carries an analgesic peptide called leptusin. The sting registers as almost nothing. Hours pass with no symptoms worth mentioning. And then, somewhere between 24 and 72 hours later, the real damage starts. It's not that this venom is slow, it's that the sting is silent. The delay isn't the venom taking its time, it's the venom carrying its own painkiller. This is also about the least threatening looking scorpion you could picture, built like a dry blade of grass. The clock still starts. This one just doesn't come with an alarm. It causes roughly 1 sting in 8 in Iran, and almost every death. The Deathstalker. It's the scorpion everybody has heard of, and it lives across North Africa and the Middle East, in exactly the dry, rocky ground people farm and walk through. But the molecule that made this venom famous is currently sitting in operating rooms, and not for the reason you'd think. Pale yellow, 2 to 3 inches, with a thin, whippy tail. The venom's a neurotoxin cocktail, chlorotoxin among them. A single milking yields a droplet you'd struggle to see. It takes thousands of milkings to fill a small vial. Priced out, that lands somewhere near $39 million a gallon, which makes gold look like a bulk commodity. Calling that difficult to source undersells the process considerably. Chlorotoxin binds to a chloride channel that brain tumor cells carry and healthy brain cells don't. Attach a fluorescent marker to it, and the tumor lights up. In preclinical work, the technique flagged clusters of as few as 200 cancer cells, where an MRI needs upward of 500,000. A Deathstalker sting is actually survivable for most healthy adults who get treatment. This animal spent its entire history perfecting that molecule, and we immediately repurposed it as a highlighter. It's a clock scorpions have been running for 437 million years. We just finally found a way to make it count down in our favor. The molecule it built to end things is now the reason some people get more time. Subscribe, and you'll catch the next one the day it lands. Thanks for watching.